Good Monday morning, Coach.
Good Monday morning.
Oh, man. We are going all out.
Congratulations, Philadelphia.
Yeah, fly on, Rocky.
Super Bowl champions.
Wow.
What a game. Today is February 5th, 2018. This is the Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast Super Bowl Review Show. Thank you for joining us.
We're going to talk all No, we're not going to talk all football today. But it's kind of hard not to talk about the biggest game of the year.
That is, man. And we'll, as usual, throw in plenty of analogies that are way too cliche and hope you enjoy them.
Yes. The Super Bowl ratings were down 12% year to year in Nashville. It's pretty surprising.
Oh. Were they?
Yeah, I just heard that on the radio.
Oh, well.
Take it for what you want, but
yeah, I think
12%.
Well, it was Justin Timberlake. If it had been, some like really crappy country singer, that would have been through the roof. So
I don't know. Nobody can figure it out. It's
yeah. Well, they've been down. I think ratings in general have been down just because of I think the sport in general just is kind of losing its popularity, at least in the professional ranks. But that's a different cast for a different day.
Well, yeah. Well, that might be a bonus cast. Our bonus political casts.
That's right.
Crushing Iron Politics Hour.
Man, where we aim to alienate and lose as many of our faithful subscribers as possible.
In all sincerity, that is the opposite of what we're trying to do here. I mean, not lose people, but we are trying to create an environment that is positive, that doesn't get mired in the extremes of political discussion.
That's right.
We're one of the few podcasts out there, by the way, that does that.
It does that, and thanks to our loyal fan base and subscribers, we keep this podcast ad and sponsor free. And we really, really appreciate everyone who has been with us through the whole ride, and then especially those that have taken the opportunity and been generous enough to hit us up on our podcast pledge page we have on our crushingiron.com website that helps us take care of everything associated with the podcast so we can continue to deliver it 2 days a week, every week, sponsor and ad free, and at no charge use. So we really appreciate everybody who has pledged and put every little bit helps keep this going and takes care of our expenses, so we don't have too much coming out of our own pocket. And on the same tune, thanks to everyone who has taken the time to give us their opinion and rate us on iTunes. It's super appreciated. I know it takes time and not everybody likes to do it, but we're now up to, I think, like 109 5-star reviews, so appreciate it. Helps us know kind of how we're doing, if we need to work on things that are specific, and then most importantly, it helps out the other athletes or triathletes, just the general population, find our podcast and lets them kind of decide if they're going to like it or not.
Yep, and on that note, I'm going to read a quick review that we've gotten recently from Oddbead. I've got one up here. It says, Oddbead, yeah. It says, I love this podcast. It's about triathlon, in parentheses, which I enjoy.
Nice.
But I always come away from the episodes with ways to be a better person overall. Focus on today, find what makes me happy, go through life with gratitude, and give everything you got each and every day. Thanks for the continued inspiration. Keep it up. That's from Oddbeat. So that's a pretty good nutshell of the cast, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a great, and that's honestly what we strive to do with this cast is educate and give out as much really solid, experience and training info for you to take on the course and with your training, and then obviously anything that we can do from our experience and our lessons learned that can support you outside of your training to help you live a better or more stress less life. We're happy to do it, and it's good to know that even a couple people have found our podcast to have helped them in that area.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, look, sometimes we've got a ton of positive, well over 100 5-star reviews, a lot of great comments on there. Every once in a while, somebody says, they're running out of topics. Well, I mean, let's be real here. I mean, we're talking about triathlon. We could sit here and nail down nuts and bolts about how to tune up your derailleur every podcast, but we've got to kind of we're just talking about triathlon, and hopefully it's a nice little escape every Monday and Thursday for people, and you can kind of listen in on us talking about our passion, and really that's what it comes down to. And I think along the way we give a lot of good information. So we just do the best we can with it. We're not commercializing the crap out of everything, and we're just kind of every week just being steady and consistent with the podcast, and whatever happens, and hopefully you like it. And that's I guess all I got right now.
And that's all he has to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
Honestly, though, it's yes, it is a podcast about triathlon, but more so, I think it's just a podcast about life that includes triathlon.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have all the answers. We just kind of search around, and hopefully some of the stuff we say inspires you or clicks with you or makes you see something differently, and helps out with the triathlon, helps out with the little things in life and the things that we deal with in life every day, the ups and downs and what have you.
And the what haves yous. So what'd you think about the game?
I have a mixed bag. Obviously, it was one of those games where it was up and down, and a lot of kind of exciting plays or whatever, and some creative plays and trick plays, and so there's a big bandwagon of how this was probably the greatest game ever, which happens every game.
Oh, stop it!
No, but I mean, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying a lot of people are great game, great, and I can't disagree with that. Except there was one punt, so there was zero defense. If you're
defense wins championships.
Yeah, and which kind of plays into my thing about what's happening to football in general is it feels like it's turning more and more literally into a video game, and
it's 7-on-7 basically.
Yeah, it's the game's changing. It seems like nobody can stop anybody, and that is what I was thinking during the game. I was like, man, if anybody steps up at any point in this game with a little bit of defense, they'll probably win it. And guess what? That's what happened.
Did. Yeah, and I gotta say, I actually said that to Allie when the Eagles scored and missed a 2-point. I said the Eagles are not going to win this game unless they get a sack. Because there were no sacks in the game or punts, and I gotta say, our two favorite college football teams, some of their former players came up quite big.
Oh yeah,
Your running back man Clement, or did I pronounce his last name?
Yeah, Clement, Corey Clement.
Yeah, he was a force, and apparently the Eagles knew that he would be because he apparently got a lot of. A lot of reps in practice. So, and then my man, old Derek Barnett, who has been a force for a long time.
Yeah, man,
he picked up the ball. Yeah, he's always been. But yeah, I thought it was a good game. It was exciting. I like to see a little more defense because I think to me, the scores became just inevitable. They were both just moving the ball at their will, and it wasn't even almost fun to watch them play defense, and I enjoy watching defense. But I thought it was a good game. I thought the Eagles were going to win. I actually called them to win by 4 with Foles scoring in the last 4 minutes, leading them on TD. So I was close, but not all the way. Kudos to them. And Tom Brady throws for 500 yards, no picks, and loses.
Yeah,
which is if you could have called that, the Patriots will never punt. Tom Brady won't throw an interception. Tom Brady will throw for over 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, you'd be like, yeah, they probably won by 40.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of one of those things, and you got to say, I know that coaches usually, and especially in football, they get ripped to shreds when teams lose, and almost none of the credit when teams win. But good God, Doug Peterson called the game of his life.
Yeah, he was solid.
And I thought he was, and he was aggressive all game, and I really thought that going forward on 4th down before the end of the half was just like, hey, we're here to win, and we probably know we can't stop you anyway. So we're down here, we might as well go for it. And you just got to give a lot of props to them, especially their team in this year. And every team loses injuries, but losing your franchise quarterback and then the backup coming in and taking you down the field. And it's kind of odd, because the last backup quarterback was to start the season was to win a Super Bowl.
Hostetler?
Tom Brady.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a backup to Bledsoe.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, and the rest is history. But yeah, good game. There's always good things to take from it. I thought it was fun to watch. But
I thought it was interesting. I was listening to that same radio show. I heard this one. They mentioned this concept called Patriots fatigue, and I was like, what? And because we had just talked about that and how they were always not the more fatigued team at the end of the game, but they were talking about ratings. Like, could it be Patriot fatigue and people are sick of watching the Patriots in the Super Bowl? But it spurred another thought to me. Is like, wait a minute, the reality is the Patriots probably play 4 more games a year than most teams every year.
Yeah.
So is that like a long-term effect? Maybe like doing 3 Ironman races in 1 year kind of thing?
I don't know about that. I mean,
I know. I was just
yeah, in terms of what they were saying, I mean, I would agree, but then I would say a lot of people tune in even more because they just want them to see the Patriots lose. So I think you regain the
it's the Alabama thing too.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the old Yankees and that kind of thing. But
one more quick question on that. We can go into your thoughts here. Not on that. One thing that crossed my mind, how that Super Bowl halftime thing is like the biggest production and like I just can't imagine being around how
30 minutes my wife even tuned into the game.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how stressful it must be, right before that's going down, like all these moving parts, and they have to get everything shuttled out there and in place, and all the microphones, everything just lined up, and how stressful that would be. And what the thought crossed my mind is, do they have a backup for Timberlake? Like, what if he's walking out of the locker room and falls down and hits his head on a golf cart or something and can't go out there? I mean, what would happen?
Listen, I'm sure Pink would have hopped out there.
They gotta have something, right?
I doubt it. There's enough superstars in the building to watch through where they could probably put together like one of the greatest performances ever just with who's in the stands.
I'm sure they could, but they gotta have something. There's always a backup plan.
Maybe it was
Jocko
Janet.
Willink always says, if you only have one, if you have one, you have none.
That's true. Maybe it was Janet Jackson.
Yeah. That would have been something. But I just thought or maybe it was just like, what if it had been like just, one of his back singers? He's like, well, Justin couldn't make it out, so tonight it's just going to be Johnny Jones.
Johnny Jones. Backup dancer number 6.
He's just going to break tonight on the Super Bowl stage.
Yeah, well, that would have been something.
Jones, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't something. But, yeah, good game. Football's over. Yay. Which kind of sucks, but hey,
Man.
When football's over, you know what that means.
It's triathlon season.
Exactly. That's what everybody says around the country. Oh, that's what I heard them on ESPN this morning. Oh, Super Bowl's over. Let's start talking triathlon.
Yep.
No.
Ironman should buy an ad, like a commercial in the last part of that game. And
well, I actually thought about this, and this is totally off subject as usual, but I was watching all these like ridiculously stupid Super Bowl commercials, and I always wonder like how many companies invest so much money in these Super Bowl ads and trying to do something different just to launch it because the Super Bowl was like famous for its commercials, and totally backfires. Rather than the companies that just like, hey, we know what we're doing it right, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing and not waste money on changing our product or launching our product or the marketing and endorsement sponsorship dollars during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then if it has a bad long-term effect on company. But anyway, down to triathlon, I always think of like things that how things correlate, for watching other coaches and teams and things play, like when we have big championships or something like this. And in this one, I thought especially was, nobody thought the Eagles were going to win. Basically, they were underdogs the last 4 or 5 times, and the same thing that goes for a team that you've got, with Tom Brady. But I thought that, they both, the Eagles definitely overcame what I would say. I don't want to say they came over a little bit. They came over like more obstacles, or they had to be more resilient because they had lost Wentz, and they had lost a couple of their big players, and the Patriots had lost a couple as well. But I just think that you got to take a guy like Tom Brady, and I read a quote earlier this week from a guy called Stuart McMillan. And I've quoted him a lot. We've shared a bunch of his articles. He runs a program called Altis, ALTIS, which is a very well-renowned athlete camp that does mostly like track and field and stuff like that. But he had a quote that I really liked earlier this week, and he said, "You are only entitled to the action, never to its fruits." And I first of all, I love that quote, in that in life in general, we always think that, because we're doing things so well, we're entitled to great results, or that we're entitled to a great performance, or we've gone to school and we've gotten our major, and we are due a great job, or we're due all these things because we put in good work. First of all, that quote spoke to me so much in training, is that, you are only entitled to the action, never to its fruits. And I thought of that again last night when I was like, dude, talk about Tom Brady. Passes for over 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, loses. Yeah. All the action you could possibly think of besides, his fumble, and, they'll get on to about that catch, but 0 fruits. And I think as athletes, that is something that I think sometimes we take for granted in our approach to, as we get to racing. When it's, I've done so much work, I've hit X, Y, and Z, I've done those things, I'm entitled to a good race. I know I'm going to PR. I'm going to go this. And the fact is when it comes just like on a game or on a series, when you're watching football, for us, in terms of a race, anything can happen that has an effect on your race day that you maybe never encountered during training. And you could put in the best 6 months of training of literally your life, and you can step up on race day, and in the first 30 seconds, it can all go to shit. Somebody kicks you in the goggles and you start to leak, or you hurt your face, and now you're like, oh my God, now you start to panic. And I think it's almost that comfort, that confident comfort that people have when they come into a race kind of too high on their things. So I've biked over the distance, I've ran over the distance, I've done these, street swims, I know I'm going to get this. And they come into a race and they're not ready to battle out with obstacles or adversity through resilience and practice, or being prepared that they're going to need to do something like that. And I think that's something that we always encounter, whether you've had a good build-up or not, whether it's a sickness or bad conditions in race day. But it's just that given that if I do X, then I am going to get Y. If you're talking specific results, you're in the fruits of your action. But I think I love that quote, because we do, I think, a lot of times, like, does our work and our consistency set us up for success? Or the chances of success maybe shining a little bit brighter on those that put in a little more work, sure, but it guarantees you absolutely nothing.
Right. what comes to mind when you're talking about that is a quote that, or like a saying that I hear all the time in triathlon, and even from pros and things like that. And it's just essentially respect the distance, respect the race, because, yeah, I mean, how many people have trained up to certain distances, whether it's, it can be any distance really, sprint, half, full, but you can have, there's a fine line between confidence and calm and sort of accepting what you are in that very moment. Because if it's real, especially, we talk about Ironman a lot, and to go into an Ironman race cocky is probably the worst place you can go, because it has proven time and time again to slap that cocky right out of your nose, and you're right. I mean, it's like, how far, what is the deal between being prepared and being confident, being humble, and I think humility is a lot of times the winner when you're stepping up to the shore on the race, that swim,
Yeah, it's a huge fine line. I think it kind of teeters on cautious optimism. Mm-hmm. Like I know I've done all the really, really, really hard work, and I know that I have personally set myself up for success in the best way that I possibly can. Mm-hmm. But I know that with this race, you really do, for especially these large races, you have 2,500 other people that can all affect your race. Yeah. Whether it's in the swim, whether it's on the bike, very rarely on the run course. That's why I think like so many people get a sense of relief when they get off the bike, because you have that like, now it's definitely all up to me.
Yep.
It's not like, the swim, like somebody kicks you, your goggles fall off, you get trampled over, your wetsuit zipper comes unpulled. You hop on the bike and it's, it's flat tires, it's mechanicals, it's wrecks, it's, grabbing a water bottle at the aid station and getting pulled down by a volunteer, and so there's just so many things to take into account that literally you have no control over.
Right.
You don't have control, and that's with most things like you don't have control really of anything, but you have control over your reaction to that action. And I think that's where, athletes set themselves up for success to finish and excel when they are prepared for these kind of events to happen, or they just know that when they do happen, it's not going to be the end of the world. I just need to focus. And I think that, like you said, beginning of the race, it's that cautious optimism, because it is, man, it's such a crazy sport when you think about it in terms of how other people can affect it, positively and I don't say negatively, but just, listen, as with all things in life, the more people you add to it, the more variables that are bound to arise. And I was watching this during the Olympics. Did you see the Lindsey Vonn commercial?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no, excuse me. It was not a Lindsey Vonn commercial. It was a commercial, I think, for a skier of some sort. But anyway, she was born or at some point lost a leg. But anyway, it was a journey. Basically, it said, throughout this crazy number, 40, chances of winning a gold medal Olympics, 1 in 42,338,000, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it whittled down all the way to the end, and it shows, her at the start line. And I was having this conversation with an athlete a couple months ago, and I said, listen, when you think about training for an Ironman, and you think of wanting to succeed, and you think of wanting to do all the little things right. Well, on day one, let's say all 3,000 people register. Well, the next day you wake up and you train and you're more consistent. Well, now and let's say other people did too. Well, now you moved up to 2,900th because you did everything on that day that 100 people didn't do. Mm-hmm. And then the next month you go through and you're super consistent and you hit your swims and you hit your rides and you hit your runs and you don't take weeks off and you take advantage of the off season. You just don't, take it for granted like a lot of people do. Well, now you move down to 2000th.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you keep going, you get closer to race day, and you start whittling away and chipping away at that participant list of, I'm doing all the things, I'm going to wake up today. And anyway, the thought process behind the comment was, she wanted to place top, whatever overall at a race next year. And I think it was like 300 or something maybe. We'll just use that number. And I said, well, every day you just need to wake up and decide, today I'm going to do what 2,700 other people refuse to do. And then when you get to, because that's really what Ironman is about. Once you sign up and you get to the end, there's so much attrition from injuries, burnout, family and work obstacles, and then skipping races and skipping workouts and all these things, that it really is just getting to the start line alone is just a battle sometimes of just willpower and consistency and resilience. And those that make it there in the best shape are going to ultimately do the best. So you do all this journey alone, and then when you get to race day, you start sprinkling in other people that are like, what the hell? I've been able to do all this training alone. I've been doing all this stuff unimpeded. I've been training like in a bubble, as athletes love to do. Like they quit going on group rides. They quit going on, all these things because they want to stay safe. And they get to a race, and you're like, holy crap! Like now I've got to deal with all these people. Mm-hmm. And I think you hear it all the time. And you heard it a lot after. I'll use Louisville for an example. Like it was so windy and there were people everywhere, like flying everywhere, and the waves are going up and down, and like you had all this perfect training, quote unquote, and then you got to race day and everything went to shit. It was choppy in the water. It was just insanely windy on the bike, and then it was freezing cold on the run. And so you had all these things that you worked and you worked and you worked, and then you had for all three legs, three kind of crazy, non-typical, weather type events that happened that you more than likely didn't prepare for. And it wasn't necessarily the people that prepared for him that succeeded. It was the people that were prepared for things not to go right, or that knew in their head, okay, when things don't go right, I'm going to continue to move forward anyway. And it might affect your day, but it's not going to affect mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to read a quick little quote I was reading in a book last night, and it's from the Book of Runes, and it says, relinquishing control is the ultimate challenge of the spiritual warrior. And sometimes that's how I think about it. It's like when I get to a race, and there's always nerves, and no matter who you are, maybe I'm sure some of these pros don't feel the nerves, or the better, especially if you're a good swimmer, and that's usually the tell point right at the beginning of a race, is like that anxiety of that massive scrum in the water, and you just hope you're so to me it's all about letting go. And I've talked about it before, like I get somehow every time I go to a race, I'm just a nervous wreck until I get maybe like a couple hundred yards in the line out of the water. Somehow I feel the ability to let go, and I just realize that I'm going in, you know what I mean? And I call it walking the plank, but it's like you just get to this point where you're like, there's no turning back, and you might as well just let go and trust the training, trust everything you've done. It's kind of cliche, but you have to believe that a force greater than you is just going to be able to take over that day and get you to the finish line. I mean, that's just the reality of it for me. And I think once you can let go, and once you can get out of your own way and get out of your head and just let the energy of a greater power sort of like guide you and just let you relax, that's when I think you're in a good spot. And I think you're right. I mean, you can out-train people all you want, and then at some point it becomes like, if you've trained exactly like someone else, then who's going to be able to handle it mentally better, or be able to relax and just perform at their highest level with that training? Because that's always an issue too. It's like you can train your ass off. But if you can't relax or find any kind of flow in your, it's like running. Even most times when I start running, I don't feel like I'm like breathing really out of my body for the first 2 to 3 miles. And even now, anytime training, run, whatever, that's one of my most difficult things is being able to maintain a smooth breathing flow and relax. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the case in every event. And it's the beginning of the. So like if you struggle with that kind of thing in the water, yeah, maybe that can happen, but you want it to happen for as short a period as time, right? You want to find a nice smooth breathe pattern in the water. And how can you do that? How can you shorten that? How can you shorten that on the bike? Like getting out of the water and running and being hyperventilated and then getting on that bike and breathing so hard for the first 5 miles. You want to be able to kind of be at peace when you get on that bike. I mean, ultimately, I think that's the goal. So you can execute the entire ride or the entire run at your best ability. So I don't know what the answer is there. I'm just saying I think there's a lot to be said for being able to just accept where you're at and let go once you get into these places.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in that same light, it also comes back to kind of something we talked about, I think, in the last podcast, was, it's rarely, if ever, is it the person that works the hardest. It's the person who has the best judgment. Mm. And I think, it's human nature to, in so many areas, it's like when something goes awry, or it's like, I just need to go faster and do more,
right?
Or go harder and faster and stronger and bigger and better. But so many times it's like the exact opposite. It's like, I'll use, like one of the biggest pitfalls of many an athlete is what they do and how they respond when they face a headwind.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, it is single-handedly the most debilitating, demoralizing, ego-crushing event you can come across in a race, because so many athletes get obsessed with time and miles per hour that when they see a 20 mile an average, I'm just going to hold 20. That's their race. I'm going to hold 20, and they hit a headwind, and they're literally trying to put like more effort into the bike and into the race, and they pound down the gears and they drop down into like a huge gear, and they're grinding it out, and they're obviously going way over their effort or their zone, their heart rate or their power, whatever they've got dialed in for the day, and they still can't hold 20. But they're so like dead set on obsessed, and then they just, you slowly see your average mile per hour just go down from 20 to 19.9 to 19.8 to 19.7. And internally you're absolutely going apeshit.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm just crushing it. There goes my goal. So you have athlete A who decides, I'm gonna get this 20. And they go harder, and they try to go faster, and they do, and they tense up, and they put all their effort into trying, but the effort, even if they can maintain the 20 and even get there, they're going to have just blown multiple loads and are probably going to be walking the run.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the other athlete who gets there and says, all right, it's a headwind, we've all got it, I'm going to pick up my cadence, I'm going to relax, I'm going to stay small, and I'm going to weather the storm. And they might, fall back a little bit, but they get a sense of like calmness and acceptance and staying in that moment than totally fighting. Because there are a lot of times there's just no point in fighting a resistance. It's you just have to kind of absorb it, accept it, and then, hopefully return the favor down the road. And that's an opportunity that the athlete who chooses to go about it smartly can do, but the other ones won't. And so I think that's a good example of the response isn't always work harder. It's a lot of times it's, and that's something I try to like nail down with my athletes. I'm like, listen, it's really not about working harder. It is in fact about working smarter. and being patient and not, and believing that down the road is when you will, reap all the benefits, not today. But it's that judgment that judgment and action and never having to always, meeting resistance with resistance isn't always the answer.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the headwinds are such an interesting piece of that. I think it's really a microcosm of, it's the thing that sort of forces you into that mindset of making yourself relax. And, we obviously, if you've been to camp here in Nashville, one of our camps, you know what the lab is, and it's basically an old airport that we ride at a lot, and it's a mile loop, and you get a half mile. Every time you go out there, you almost guaranteed a half-mile stretch that's dead into wind, and a strong wind, and certainly a crosswind, but a lot of times it's just a headwind. And for me, if I'm riding out there a lot, all I think about when I get hit into a headwind is just relaxing, like you said, and getting small and getting in a pocket and relaxing, because that is the ultimate way to attack wind. And if you try to fight it, it gets worse. So luckily I get to train on that all the time. So when I get out on the race course, and it's a lot harder to identify wind sometimes when you're out there, but I know that the idea of going into a headwind is all about letting go and not trying to fight it. And I think that if you can think about that, not only in headwinds, but like when your legs are starting to, you kind of feel like you got to pick up the pace on the run or the swim. If you can just settle back in and relax, everything becomes, you go probably just as fast, if not faster, if you can relax at that point in the deal, and not harp on like going with more effort all the time. I mean, I think there's a big lesson in there, especially in the longer races,
Well, it's definitely that effect in the longer races, because so much of it is about being smarter. And I try to talk to athletes about this all the time, especially when they are going to encounter races with more than likely adverse conditions. And I'm like, listen, like you might not be able to outfit or outfitness or athlete a lot of these people, but I guarantee you can outsmart most of them. And that's so much of what long course racing or any kind of race, like depending on how long, it's so much about judgment, and it's so much about picking and choosing where and when and why I'm going to make the conscious decision to really put forth the most energy that I have. And having the patience to wait and use that energy to me is a learned skill, and it's something that not everybody has. And I have, and it's people's personalities. Like I naturally have athletes who, like they have no problem always taking taking their easy runs really 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 easy. They don't mind it. It's just a personality. And then they go balls to the wall, and on the hard ones and on race day, but I do have some that I'm like, hey, we need to slow it down a little bit. We need to relax. And some of it's because they haven't seen, the results. Some of it's because, and they're just not used to it, and they've heard so many different things and they've read so many different things, and like when it's a learned skill. And I think when you learn it in training, and you do things via patience and trust and training, that when you get to race day, it's not going to be like a for sure, because everybody makes mistakes in races. It's like everybody does. There's way too many decisions to make. It's just like the regular day. Listen, in a 12-hour day, you're going to make some mistakes. Okay, you're going to make some bad decisions. So when you come to race day and you have like so many different variables, and the pressure's on and the expectations are high, you're going to make some mistakes. So we're all going to make them, but it's either A, making fewer mistakes, or B, reversing that mistake a lot quicker and not letting it ruin your whole day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the basis for that's basically how you coach. I mean, like, that's where you come from, right? I mean, that's what's kind of at the core of every workout you prescribe, really. Is that smarter? I mean, I always
a
talk
lot
about
of it, yeah. A lot of it is, yeah. A lot of it is patience, yeah.
Yeah, I did patience. I'm the first one to. I'm kind of a wild card on that sort of thing. I think, because there is a tendency to always want to see where you're at and see what you're capable of, and on that often comes in training days, and we talk about that all the time. Is not PRing your training workouts all the time. So, but I have a tough time with that. Yesterday, I finally got out there and did and I wrote a little post about it, but I call it the slow burn negative split. It was probably the first longish run of the year for me, and I went out with the idea of trying to go 9 miles, and my goal was to run the second half just a little bit faster. So my whole idea was to go out, like you say, go out in a comfortable pace for the first 4.5 miles.
Yeah.
And that's your setup, right? So that's always the hard part, right? Is if that's a 10-minute pace, then your back time is going to be a little bit easier. But it's not always easy to slow that down, especially when you're going by yourself and people can't hold you back or whatever. But I went out and tried to keep it at a comfortable breathing rate on the way out, and something I can handle. And then on the way back, like the example was, on the way out I was averaging 9:11 pace for the whole 4.5 miles, and my goal on the way back was to have that overall average go down to 9:10. So I was not, I was trying to speed up as little as possible, but maintain. And do that slow burn and run for me, which felt manageable. It didn't feel super slow necessarily, but it felt like something I could handle. And I got to tell you, man, I hadn't run over 6 miles since December 20th or whenever we did that trail race.
Yeah.
And I went out and I knew I was probably like biting off just a little bit more, but the way I handled it, and based on kind of what we talk about all the time and what you talk about all the time, is running slower to get faster. It really felt good, and it feels good today, more importantly. And when I got done, I wasn't just like, in traction like I can be after going out and throwing together an extra 3 miles out of nowhere. So yeah, man, it's like, how do you approach it? It gives me, it's a weird thing because it gives me this confidence moving forward. And you're right. I could see, I guess it's one of those things where you could see, yeah, I could have done that a lot faster, but what's the point right there?
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to get? Those are the
decisions we make all the time in training.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And it's trusting and knowing that it's trusting and believing. A lot of times you have to see a result first before you can apply it to like a given confidence day in and day out, because it's hard for somebody to get across. Okay, I don't understand how doing all this zone 1, zone 2 work and running this much without doing a speed work. I just don't understand how it's going to help me. So yeah, you have to as a coach, you have to dive in and okay, let's break it down here and share some articles or just experience. Just say, I know it's difficult. Just trust me. Just trust me. And I had an athlete example yesterday who. Steve King, one of our athletes that lives in the UK, he just blazed out an insane 10K yesterday, like a 38-minute 10K, which is like a 6:08 pace. And I think over the last, I don't know, I think I looked up in his in a summary, in like the last 90 days, he spent 90% of his time in zone 1 and zone 2 running.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. We just ran a lot. And less than 1% of that time, he ever ran under 6:30.
Wow.
But it goes totally contradictory to the school of thought that I've got to, I want to run my marathon at 8-minute pace, so I've got to do all my long runs at 8-minute pace. And, it's like, you hear people say it all the time, but people have a hard time grasping the full extent of the concept of make your hards really, 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 really hard and make your easies really, really easy. And because they get so obsessed with the numbers and paces and the attributes that they think they should have to have X, Y, or Z, that but I got to do all this stuff at race pace. I'm like, okay, then you're just choosing to be an 8-minuter. Okay, and then I guarantee you it's not going to end up the way you want it to on race day. So why don't we just continue to work your aerobic system efficiently and smartly and patiently for the long haul, and then when it's time to go hard, we'll really, really, really just make your anaerobic system work harder, not harder, but smarter and more efficiently to go faster. Because anaerobic work means absolutely jack crap if you don't have the aerobic system to handle it. You know, you talk about it all the time. You can have a great engine, but if your chassis is poor, then have fun running your 5K and then having to walk the rest of the marathon. You know, it's like, and people do it literally all the time, and it's so hard to get the point across. It's the same thing. We go back to like the we alluded to last podcast on the vanity FTP. Congrats, you raised your FTP again. You can only hold it for 20 minutes. If I ask you to ride even somewhat harder for 2 hours, you fall and crumble, and you can barely hold 50% of it. You know, so what's your definition of fitness, and how fit do you really want to be? And when people do all this stuff at race pace, it rarely ever works out the way that it can. And it's because it's a lot of times it's just a lack of patience and a lack of confidence, but that all comes from, more oftentimes than not, it comes from a lack of experience and seeing results that you should get from really just honestly, like this time of year, like if you're out there and you're saying, I really want to improve my run, and you're only running like an hour or two a week, well, you're not getting any better. You're just trying not to get worse. And I know it might sound harsh, but if you want to get better at running, you need to run more. You need to run safely, you need to run smartly, but you can achieve so many great things. Like, in the great part comes of it usually this time of year when you've got athletes that, another one, Stacy Privia, who rocked her I think it was a 10K, I think, as well, and she went out and she was like, I didn't expect to be able to run this fast. I was like, well, stop expecting less of yourself. But when you haven't done a lot of speed work, it's contrary to what a lot of people believe. It's like, oh, well, I haven't done a lot of speed work, so I wasn't expected to go that fast. Well, we've been like working your engine to like really, really, really go and hold up and be durable, and now in really, really good shape. But again, going back to like the race day, you can apply it to everything else. You know, being patient in training, being consistent, just doing the best you can today, not even worrying about tomorrow. You know, in race day, whatever you're feeling right now, you're not going to feel it in 20 minutes because it's going to be different. You know, it's going to change. You know, whether it's you or the weather, the surroundings, or whatever, it's always going to change. So you just do the best you can today and trust that tomorrow you're going to do it again. And you're going to do it again. 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 And it's that taking it minute by minute, hour by hour in your races, taking it day by day in your training, session by session, and just being patient and knowing that if I do this, I'm going to set myself up for success when I get to race day, or the highest probability of success. But ultimately what will determine how successful I truly am is my judgment within the race. You know, when it comes to dealing with all the things that are going to happen either in or out of my control.
Mm-hmm. When you just said that, that was reminding me of our good friend Lee Wilson over here at Nashville Running Company. He used to run on the Oregon track team, Nike, Steve Prefontaine, all that legacy, and he's one of the better runners I know personally. And I would, as I was starting my running journey, I always used to pepper him about like little tips and techniques and, you know, tricks to get faster and all this stuff. And he would always just kind of goof. He's kind of a jokester, so he would always goof around and like, well, I don't know, I really don't know, and I was like, what do you mean you don't know? You trained under the best at, at running university, and have any tip? He goes, I don't know. Only thing I know about running is you get better by running more. That's what he would always say to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of come full circle on that. It's just, it makes sense. I mean, it only makes sense, and I'm sure, like, I sit here and same with cycling. It's the same principle, right? I mean, it's like, I know what happens is it seems like when you get in the older age group, some of these older guys that I compete against are all, not all, but there's like a pretty big glut of solid cyclists, and I just get the feeling that a lot of that comes from getting older and they just can't run as much because their legs can't take it or whatever, so they turn to the bike and they just ride the bike all the time. They just fall in love with it and they just start riding all the time. The next thing you know, they're cranking out low 5-hour Ironman rides, like it's nothing. And I'm sure that's just because they just put a lot of miles on their legs, and they're probably not all hard miles. They're just riding a lot.
No, they're definitely not all hard miles. Like, especially if they're outdoors and like the weather's nice. It's it's that hack, that high intensity interval session, that like way of like, oh well, I don't have time for the more, so I'm just gonna invent something where I can do less and then convince myself that it's equal to or greater than the more. Like, That's not how it works. Do you sometimes have to, like, be creative? Sure. But, more oftentimes than not, listen, like, the proof is in the pudding, and it's, and it usually is, it's the more patient, long-term success. And we talk about it all the time, but it's a hard thing to grasp, and it's even harder when you tell somebody, like, listen, you can even still do all this, and then who knows what'll happen on race day,
right?
And it's like, and I honestly think, like, that's some athletes have that mentality of, well, at least I can control my workout, so I'm going to just PR all of it, so I'll feel good about my results, because who knows what'll happen on race day. It just wasn't my day. And you have athletes that do that. Then you have other athletes who say, listen, you train for the race. The race is the test. And if you want to do great on your homework and then fail the test, then go do great on your homework. Or do you want to put yourself in the best chance to ace your test? And you'll do everything that matters in the interim, and doing all your homework and reading and being good at the quizzes and whatever it is. But when it comes to test day, that's what matters.
That's a great point. Because
that's what proves if your training is working. That's what proves if you're as fit as you think you are. It's not your training. Don't go hang your hats. You don't see people hanging and putting in boxes and in frames and on boards and on banners or whatever. They're training PRs. There's their races, because that's where we test ourselves. That's where we race. That's the goal. It's not your homework.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I think back to homework, I mean, you can ace homework, and you can, but a lot of times the way to ace homework is to, I don't want to say cheat, but like, you can look things up, and, you can, you're not necessarily learning it. You're just doing well on your homework, because you're, finding, shortcuts, what have you. That's kind of a good analogy, I think, because if you can't really teach your body how to deal with the elements of the race day during training, that's the whole thing, right? So you don't need to see like A+ across the board on training, but if you're learning something and you kind of get better the next time out, or you grasp it deeper and you can apply it during that race, that's the whole key, right?
Always in school, who always aced the pop quizzes? The people who were prepared. Always prepared every day. Not the people who didn't pay attention in class for 2 weeks and just thought, you know what, I'm pretty sure I can, let's say I don't really need to pay attention in class because I'm going to get a study guide and my friends are going to study, so I can just probably really focus, like, I don't know, like the 2 days before the test, and I'll probably just be okay. I can catch up. And then you get a pop quiz and you're like, oh shit, bomb. Yeah. Like you have no idea what you're talking about. You have to fake your way through it.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who pay attention every single day to all the details and always come prepared and are always ready, day in and day out, they ace it. And they'll ace the test because they're always prepared and always doing what's required. And know that ultimately it's my end of the year grade that matters, not what I can make off copying off Billy Joe or getting the study guide from, Einstein.
Einstein. Did you know anybody that was nicknamed Einstein when you were in school?
No, I had a lot of nicknames. Dude, I was a horrible student. Much to my mother's chagrin, I was being a lifelong educator. If she had a nickel for every time a teacher said, your son's just not applying himself.
Yeah, the school of hard knocks, man.
It is, man. She could have already retired, but
isn't that the most frustrating thing? See how long it took you to grasp that concept?
Hey, it did, but we're not.
But
we're
now
not
it's got deep roots.
It is, and now we're not paying off my student loans either. So, hey, there's always a bright side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, guess what that ended up on? Consistency.
That's right.
It's kind of the theme word of our closed group and our Facebook closed group. You can search the Crushing Iron group in Facebook, and you get into our little closed group and find out what's going on in there. Everybody's getting excited about the races that are coming up, and we're starting to meet and network and get groups meeting all over the country and meeting new friends through triathlon. And we've got 50 people going to Chattanooga 70.3 in May. So if you're going to that or you're going to any other races, come on in there and just throw it out and introduce yourself, and let's see if we can't start making some connections around this beautiful globe.
It is it's a pretty beautiful globe.
Yeah, you faded out there. You didn't sound too.
Yeah, I was thinking. I mean, a lot of it's pretty, some of it's not, but yeah, most of it's water, and water's pretty. So they're in beautiful globe.
Yeah, and we do have camps coming up this spring and summer with very few openings. But you can check them out.
We are April and June. We had slots open. Now those are taken. So August is still available. August Triathlon Camp is open. We still have April and May swim camps that are open. And then you can always find additional information on coaching and training plans and swim analysis at cruchingiron.com. And we also have hats and visors there for sale as well. And those obviously go back and help the podcast as well. And I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who has had such good feedback on the video that Mike posted this last week in our closed group about how to swim straight. We recorded a lot of minutes and almost an hour of video and to hopefully help you guys become more efficient at swimming and frankly just not suck at swimming has kind of been our thing. And I think we'll continue to release one of those a week. And we appreciate the feedback and the views, and please feel free to share those with other people as well.
Yeah, you can find those on our YouTube channel, Crushing Iron YouTube. We'll be posting them there, and they will be going into a group folder called How to Not Suck at Swimming or Swimming Training or something like that. What else we got going?
That's it, man.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. And if you get a moment, leave us a good review on iTunes. That would be appreciated. Help other people find the podcast. If you're learning something, as always, you can feel free to share our information. It's all free information. Just putting it out there. Free to the world.
You can freely share our free information.
Yeah.
It's a free world, man. Free country.
Input, or you want any information about coaching or swim camps, c26coach@gmail.com. Yes. General questions, crushingiron@gmail.com. And that'll be it.
That is all she wrote.
We're getting close to March Madness.
Yep. Oh, I know we are.
And Tennessee looking good.
Whoop, whoop.
You got Kentucky tonight, right?
That's that's Tuesday, I think.
Oh, Tuesday? Okay.
I think so. I'll have to check. But I think it's Tuesday.
All right, check out one of our 130 plus podcasts. We've got a huge back catalog, a lot of stuff out there for you. And there's going to continue to be more every Monday and Thursday, the Crushing Iron Podcast.
See ya.
See you, buddy.